Have you ever paused, felt the whisper of the wind, heard the roar of the waves, or simply noticed the steady beat of your own heart? It is there that I find Him. The true God, for me, is the all-encompassing existence. He is present in every breath of nature, in every living creature. The sheltering trees, the towering mountains, the twinkling stars, even the tiny animals moving ceaselessly, all are His faces scattered across the cosmos. Yet, among these myriad manifestations, there is one that stands most noble, most captivating, most extraordinary. That is us, humanity. We don't merely exist, we are conscious of our existence. We don't just gaze at the stars, we chart their courses. We don't merely walk the earth, we dream of conquering the skies. For me, humanity is the mirror through which God beholds Himself. In our intellect, in our creativity, in our capacity for love, even in the beauty of our bodies and souls, an unparalleled divine light shines forth. If the entire universe is His sacred text, then we, humans, are the brightest, most beautiful, and most profound page. From the dawn of civilization, we have grappled with the oldest, deepest questions. Who am I? Where do I come from? What is my connection to this God? These questions don't arise without reason. They are born from our unique consciousness. No animal gazes at the night sky and wonders, where do those stars come from? No plant contemplates why it grows, then withers, then dies. But we humans, with our reason, our curiosity, and our inner restlessness, are perpetually driven to seek meaning beyond mere existence. Herein lies our distinction. We don't just live, we are aware that we live. We don't just feel hunger, thirst, love, or fear. We process these experiences into stories, into art, into philosophy, even into prayer. We build civilizations, constructing cities, writing scriptures, designing machines, sculpting statues, and composing symphonies. We transform nature from merely a dwelling place into a canvas for creation. While other creatures simply follow their instincts, we transcend our own, creating what was previously unimagined. This exceptional quality has placed humanity at the pinnacle of the chain of life. Many traditions refer to us as noble beings, the image of God, or stewards, Khalifa, on earth. Our upright physique, our keen intellect, our profound consciousness, and our capacity for building civilizations are all testaments to how humanity differs from every other creation. It is no exaggeration to say that humanity is the clearest manifestation of divine attributes in the universe. If the entire universe is a manifestation of God, then humanity appears as the most beautiful, most complex, and most noble manifestation. Our very existence can be read as proof of divinity. In other words, humanity is not merely a creature, but the apex of glory that radiates divine light. If we pause for a moment to reflect on the human body, we immediately realize how extraordinary it is compared to other creatures. Humanity is the only being on earth capable of standing tall and proud. This upright posture is not just about stance, it's a symbol of dignity. By standing upright, we assert that we are not subservient to the earth, but ready to gaze at the heavens, ready to challenge space and time with our conscious eyes. Our two hands, unbound by the function of walking, liberate us to create. From these hands, civilization was born. Stone was carved into tools, wood assembled into homes, clay molded into pottery. Even now, these same hands type words on screens, control machines, and shape technology with their touch. Our hands are extensions of our thoughts, instruments that transform ideas into reality. No other creature possesses this gift. A lion may have powerful claws, a bird may have beautiful wings, but human hands transcend everything, for behind their movements lies will and consciousness. And our face? Oh, the human face is a living canvas that can project 1,000 expressions. A soothing smile, a piercing gaze, flowing tears, or an explosive laugh. The face becomes a universal language, understood without words. A cat might purr, a dog might bark, but no animal can display the spectrum of emotions as broadly as we can. From our faces spring beauty, communication, portrait art, and captivating charm. Yet our uniqueness isn't solely physical. There is something far more profound, our intellect and consciousness. Humanity is the only creature capable of being aware of itself. We know that we live, and we are conscious that one day we will die. This very consciousness gives birth to civilization, for it is from the anxiety of mortality that we are driven to create something that transcends our own lives. Animals never write history, never compose poetry, never build monuments to commemorate themselves. But we inscribe our traces on stone, in books, in technology, and in the collective memory of generations to come. To underscore this distinction, imagine if we were to discover other beings beyond Earth, aliens. As often depicted in sci-fi films and stories, aliens are typically portrayed with strange bodies, large heads, round black eyes, gaunt figures, or scaly skin. There is often an impression of coldness, foreignness, even fear in these depictions. Compare this to humanity. A proportional body, an expressive face, a graceful posture. If intelligent beings exist out there, I dare say human beauty remains unparalleled. Our form is not only functional, but also aesthetic. Our beauty makes us not merely living beings, but also artistic beings, creations who are simultaneously creators. And beyond that, humanity appears in two complementary forms, male and female. The male a symbol of strength, assertiveness, and resilience. The female embodying gentleness, grace, and allure. They're not merely genders, but two sides of a single completeness. From their union, new life is born. Balance emerges, and an incomparable beauty arises. Even in art, mythology, and religion, the symbols of male and female have always been viewed as manifestations of cosmic harmony. This is humanity's uniqueness among all creatures. A beautiful body, a conscious mind, a creative soul, and a balanced existence. We are not just a part of nature, but its culmination. We are beings created not merely to live, but to understand, to create, and to give meaning to life. In many religious stories and mythologies, we often hear about the forms of supernatural beings, angels, jinn, and the like. They are said to exist, yet their forms are often described as far removed from what we recognize as beauty. In sacred texts, for example, angels do not always appear with simple, captivating visages. Some are depicted with many wings, some with thousands of eyes, others with bodies filled with light in shapes unimaginable to us. Such descriptions often resemble monsters, alien, awe-inspiring, even terrifying. Their forms cannot easily be called beautiful because they transcend the logic of symmetry and harmony that we typically define as beauty. Similarly, with jinn, beings often considered closer to humans than angels in many traditions. Yet their true forms are said to be abstract,
impermanent, unbound by a clear shape. They are energy, smoke, or shadows that can shift and change. And when they appear in human form, it is not their true essence, but merely an imitation. They borrow the human body to appear in an acceptable guise, as if acknowledging that the human form is the highest standard of beauty. Jinn can imitate a handsome face or a strong body, but it is merely a reflection, not their true nature. This implies that the human form is recognized as the most noble, most perfect, and most beautiful form. Abstract angels, fluid jinn, all defer to the symbol of human bodily majesty. Thus, it is no exaggeration to say that humanity is the pinnacle manifestation of God's beauty. If angels are known for their obedience, if jinn are known for their freedom, humanity is known for the perfection of its form, which is not only beautiful to behold, but also capable of housing intellect, heart, and soul. The human form is not merely a body, but a mirror of divine harmony. Even supernatural beings, in all their mystery, remain less beautiful than we humans, who stand visibly on earth with faces, hands, and bodies full of dignity. In many ancient mythologies, we frequently encounter depictions of strange-looking deities, human bodies combined with animal heads or terrifying composite forms. To the people of that era, they might have seemed sacred, full of symbolism and mystery. A lion's, bird's, or crocodile's head attached to a human body seemingly symbolized extraordinary natural power. However, if we view them from the perspective of our own human dignity, such divine forms actually appear inferior. Why? Because the head is the center of beauty, and also the symbol of consciousness. On the human face, there is a captivating gaze, a touching smile, expressions capable of conveying thousands of meanings without words. Our head is not just a physical organ, it is also a symbol of consciousness and dignity. Therefore, when a being is depicted with a human body but an animal head, its dignity, in fact, is diminished. It loses the beautiful, expressive, and meaningful human face. Animals certainly possess instinctive power and sharp senses, but no animal possesses a face as beautiful as humans. A lion may be majestic, an eagle powerful, yet neither possesses a gaze capable of revealing the depths of the soul as we do. That is why, if such animal-headed deities truly existed, their forms would indeed be less beautiful than ours. They would more closely resemble symbols of fear or warning, rather than a charm that captures the heart. It is clear here that humanity remains at the pinnacle of beauty. Our face is a portrait of consciousness, our body a symbol of harmony, and our dignity a radiance of divinity. Even the depictions of animal-headed deities ultimately acknowledge human superiority. For by giving them human bodies, mythology implicitly admits that only the human body is noble. But by replacing the human head with an animal head, that mythology indirectly lowers their status. In other words, the human form remains the highest standard that even imaginary deities cannot surpass. If we trace the long journey of humanity, we uncover a truly astonishing story. A story about a creature that not only survived, but also built worlds. In the beginning, we dwelled in caves, seeking shelter from cold and danger, relying only on fire and simple stone tools. Yet from these limitations, the first steps towards something far grander were born: civilization. The etchings on cave walls, which might have once been simple symbols or hunting records, I now read as a sign that from the very beginning we possessed an impulse to record, to express, and to leave our mark. From caves we ventured out to fields and valleys, establishing settlements. From settlements, villages, cities, and eventually great empires arose. Imagine how extraordinary that journey was. from simple tents to the magnificent pyramids of Egypt, from hand-shaped clay to the Great Wall of China stretching for thousands of kilometers, from temples in India and the Nusantara archipelago to majestic cathedrals in Europe. All these structures declare that we are not content with mere existence. We desire to live with meaning, with beauty, with something that transcends ourselves. Beyond these buildings and creations, art and philosophy also blossomed. We paint not merely to depict objects, but to evoke emotion. We dance, sing, sculpt, and compose poetry, all to bring to life something deeper than mere physical needs. Ancient Greek philosophers sat in the agora, questioning the nature of existence, seeking definitions of truth and justice. Eastern poets wrote timeless verses of love that we still read and cherish today. Art, philosophy, and architecture are proof that humanity harbors something that cannot be explained by instinct alone, a divine impulse to create and to seek meaning. This journey became even more astonishing as humanity entered the era of science and technology. From simple observations of the sky, astronomy was born. From curiosity about the body, medicine emerged. From the desire to master nature came machines, electricity, computers. All these are extensions of our creative power, an unceasing drive to conquer limitations. While animals merely adapt to their environment, we transform the environment to suit our needs. We build bridges over rivers, tunnels under mountains, airplanes to cross the skies. And most fascinating of all, these creations do not cease with a particular generation. We leave behind legacies that transcend ourselves. Writings etched thousands of years ago can still be read today. Buildings erected centuries ago still stand, even as the world around them has changed. Scientific discoveries from the past form the foundation of modern technology. Even when a human being dies, their work lives on, continuing to speak to subsequent generations. In this way, humanity refuses to be forgotten. It conquers the transience of its body with the immortality of its creations. This is what differentiates us from all other creatures. We are not merely beings that eat, sleep, reproduce, and die. We are beings who carve history, leave footprints, and build civilizations. Civilization itself is the clearest evidence of the divine nature within humanity, the impulse to create, to transcend, to immortalize oneself. So when I see modern cities with their skyscrapers, when I read literature written centuries ago, or when I gaze through a telescope peering into the edges of the cosmos, in truth, I am seeing the face of God reflected through human hands and minds. Among all the gifts humanity possesses, there is one that is most profound, which places us at the pinnacle of all creatures: consciousness. This consciousness is not merely the ability to see or feel, but an inner light that makes us aware of ourselves, of time's relentless flow, and of the certainty of death. An animal may run when hungry, stop when tired, or hide when afraid, but it never ponders why it is hungry, what tiredness means, or where it will go after death. We are different. We can sit in silence just to ask, who am I? Why do I exist? Where will I return after all this ends? It is these questions that elevate us from merely living creatures to beings with a soul. Awareness of time is one of the proofs of divinity within us. We don't just live in the present day. We remember the past and plan for the future. We commemorate ancestors, write history, and build dreams that may only materialize centuries later. No animal creates a calendar. No plant marks its birthday. Only humanity can stand between past and future, sensing the flow of time as something meaningful. From this awareness of time also spring fear, hope, regret, and aspirations, all signs that we live with a depth not possessed by other creatures. Yet the deepest awareness is the awareness of death. Every human knows that sooner or later they will leave this world. This knowledge of mortality is precisely what drives us to create.
Yet the deepest awareness is the awareness of death. Every human knows that sooner or later they will leave this world. This knowledge of mortality is precisely what drives us to create. From the fear of being lost, we write books to be remembered. From the fear of vanishing, we erect magnificent buildings to endure. From the fear of being forgotten, we give birth to art, science, and legacies. The awareness of death, which in animals is merely an instinct to avoid danger, transforms in humans into a search for meaning. We ask, does my life simply end in the grave? Is there something after death? These questions are the gateway that opens our path to spirituality, religion, and philosophy. In addition, humanity is endowed with something I call free will. This is the most divine power we possess. We can choose. We can determine our own path. A bird never chooses not to fly. A fish never chooses not to swim. They live entirely under the control of instinct. But we can resist instinct, even defy ourselves. We can postpone eating for fasting, refuse anger for peace, choose a life path entirely different from our environment. This free will is what makes us not merely creatures controlled by nature, but beings capable of controlling nature and even controlling ourselves. Here lies the most fundamental difference between humans and other creatures. Animals simply live without existential consciousness. They exist, but never ask what existence means. A cat never ponders why it was born a cat and not a human. A dog never questions the meaning of its loyalty. But we cannot help but ask. Questioning is our nature. Doubt is our fuel. The search for meaning is our breath. And precisely therein lies our divinity. God, in many teachings, is described as the source of the highest consciousness. So when we become aware of ourselves, we are reflecting that divine quality. When we choose with our free will, we are expressing a small power that resembles God's power. And when we bravely face mortality with art, prayer, or philosophy, we are truly breaking our own limits to touch the eternal. Our consciousness, with all its restlessness and grandeur, is the pinnacle of our dignity. Without consciousness, we are merely moving bodies. With consciousness, we transform into a mirror of God on earth. If our intelligence were merely a random outcome in the course of evolution, then a profound question arises that I find difficult to answer. Why did only we achieve it? Why did no other animal break through that barrier, standing shoulder to shoulder with us in terms of intellect, consciousness, and civilization? Imagine if everything were truly just a matter of chance. Wouldn't there be a possibility for a horse, for instance, to evolve to stand upright, speak fluently, develop grammar, or even engage in diplomacy like humans? Or a dolphin, supposedly intelligent, should by now have built underwater cities, written poems about the waves, and constructed vessels that cross the oceans. But the fact is they haven't. Animals remain animals. They can be trained, learn instincts, imitate simple behaviors, but they never transcend their limits to create civilization as we do. This is a great mystery often overlooked. Evolution alone is insufficient to explain the extraordinary leap that enabled humanity to create art, philosophy, technology, and existential consciousness. If intelligence were merely a random outcome, then why is the human form the only vessel for it? Why do no other species possess an expressive face, hands free to create, and a brain capable of birthing poetry and mathematical equations? I say there is no creature on this earth as noble as humanity. We stand tall at the apex of the chain of life, not merely because of our physical strength, but because of our intellect that can subdue all others. Animals and plants, however diverse and powerful, remain within our grasp. Look at how we control wild beasts with cages, conquer the seas with ships,
transform forests into cities, and make nature a source of civilization. No other creature is capable of doing anything comparable. And fascinatingly, the animals we subdue are not even truly aware that they are being oppressed. Chickens, for example, have been raised for thousands of years, cared for, then slaughtered for food. Yet there has never been a single revolution of chickens where they united to strategize and fight back against us. They continued to cluck as usual, without ever having the consciousness to refuse their fate. Fish are the same. They repeatedly see their kin caught on hooks, yet they are still tempted by bait, still swim toward the same fishing lines. There is never a collective consciousness among them to say, "Beware, that's a trap." This is the fundamental difference. If intelligence were merely a random outcome of evolution, shouldn't there be a chance for a chicken to develop its brain to fight back against humans who oppress their kind? Shouldn't there be fish intelligent enough to warn their fellows about the danger of hooks? But the reality is, no. Chickens remain foolish. Fish remain easily deceived. Cows remain docile after thousands of years. Only we broke through the barrier. Only we gained consciousness. Only we are capable of changing our own destiny. This fact reveals something far deeper. Intelligence is not a coincidence. If intelligence were merely random, it could emerge anywhere, in any creature. But in reality, only humanity was chosen by the cosmos to bear that consciousness. There is a design at work. There is a hidden purpose. There is a divine principle that places humanity at the pinnacle of the hierarchy of life. The human body, with its free hands, expressive face, and a brain capable of housing existential consciousness, is clearly not merely a random outcome. It is a vessel deliberately prepared to channel the light of cosmic intelligence. That is why humanity is so different. We are conscious that we live. We are conscious that we can die. We are conscious that we can create, choose, and love. Meanwhile, chickens continue to cluck in their coops awaiting their demise, and fish continue to swim toward deceptive bait.
Here, humanity stands nobly as a witness that its consciousness is not a coincidence, but a sign that divine attributes radiate within us. Precisely because of this, human uniqueness becomes an undeniable sign that something more than mere biological chance is at work. There was an unseen hand guiding. There was a divine principle that chose the human form as the vessel for the highest intelligence. The human form, with its harmonious body and extraordinary brain, is the most perfect design to contain consciousness. And from this, I can say, humanity is not merely a product of blind evolution, but a manifestation of cosmic intelligence itself. We are not just a biological accident, but proof that this reality holds a purpose, that from all possibilities, only we were chosen to bear divine consciousness, to stand at the pinnacle, and to be God's witness in the midst of the cosmos. If we gaze deeper into ourselves, we will discover something astonishing. We seem to reflect attributes that we typically ascribe to God. Of course, we are not absolute, not perfect, and still bound by limitations. Yet it is precisely beyond these limitations that I see such a clear radiance, a spark of divinity that differentiates us from other creatures. God, in our imagination, is the Creator. He created the heavens and the earth, mountains and oceans, time and life. And behold us, though small before the cosmos, we also create. We compose poetry, paint, make music, build machines, cities, even civilizations. From our hands and minds, a new world is born that never existed before. When someone paints on a white canvas, they bring something from nothingness. When a scientist discovers a theory, they unveil hidden laws. When an architect designs a building, they emulate the harmony of nature to manifest it in stone and steel. Are these not all reflections of the divine attribute of creation? God is the giver of meaning. He imbues the cosmos with meaning, so that everything is not just dead matter, but part of a larger story. We too do something similar. We give meaning to our lives, to the objects around us, to the symbols and language we create. A stone is not just a stone. It can become a monument, a sacred sign, or a relic. Water is not just a liquid. It can signify purity, life, or even memory. We are not content with reality as it is. We interpret it, imbue it with meaning, and bring it back to life with values. In this way, we expand the universe, existing not just physically, but meaningfully. God is described as having will, the power to determine everything. And we too, on a small scale, possess free will. We can choose our own path, even if that choice sometimes carries risk. A farmer can decide whether to plant or not plant. A young person can choose to dream big or surrender to circumstances. Even in the most confined situations, we can still choose our attitude, to accept with sincerity, to fight bravely, or to mourn in despair. It is these choices that make us not merely victims of circumstance, but subjects who determine our own course. This free will is a sign that within us there is a glimpse of God's moving power. And most profoundly, God is known as love. He loves His creation, scattering love into the cosmos. We too are capable of loving. We fall in love, care for children, help strangers, weep at the suffering of others. Love is a universal language that not only binds us to one another, but also connects us to something higher. From love arise sublime art, sincere sacrifice, and even the deepest prayers. Is not pure love the most divine quality that can be felt by us? So when I see us creating, giving meaning, willing, and loving, I am truly seeing divine attributes. We are not the absolute God, but within us there is a shadow, a reflection, an echo of the absolute. And precisely therein lies our glory, that within a mortal body, within a limited mind, within a fragile heart, we still carry a divine light that makes us the most noble creature among all creation. Humanity perpetually questions itself, and the deeper one delves into the nature of existence, the closer one comes to the realization that something resembling the divine resides within. In humanistic philosophy, we are placed at the center of existence. The world is no longer seen as a small stage directed by supernatural forces, but as a space where we ourselves play the leading role. In this view, we are not merely creatures dependent on something outside ourselves, but determining subjects, creators of value, and the sole interpreters of reality. Everything is measured by how useful, meaningful, and accommodating it is to humanity. In other words, humanity becomes the center of the universe, because only through our consciousness does the universe gain meaning. If there were no humans to witness, who would say that the stars are beautiful or that the laws of nature are grand? However, a spiritual perspective takes us further. Here, humanity is seen not only as a center, but also as a manifestation of God. All divine attributes, creator, compassionate, willing, giver of meaning, are reflected within us. When we love, it is a reflection of God's love. When we create, it is a reflection of God's creative power. In this way, humanity is considered a medium, a vessel, or an instrument through which the divine reveals itself in the world. In major religions, this idea also appears in different ways. In the Abrahamic tradition, for example, we are said to have been created in the image of God, or appointed as stewards or Khalifa on earth. This means we carry divine dignity and responsibility, tasked with preserving, managing, and maintaining the earth as if we are God's representatives walking on the land. Other traditions describe humanity as a being carrying a spark of divine light within us, something that makes us more noble than even supernatural beings. With this position,
Humanity is never seen as an ordinary animal, but a creature holding a cosmic trust, a connector between heaven and earth. However, this is where we also need to be careful. There is a fundamental difference between saying humanity is a manifestation of God and saying humanity is God itself in its entirety. We bear a resemblance to the divine, but we never become the absolute divine. God is the source. We are but one reflection. The true God is infinite. We remain bound by body, time, and space. If humanity considers itself God in the absolute sense, it will fall into arrogance, an arrogance that ultimately destroys itself. History has shown how humans intoxicated with power, feeling absolute, end up creating wars, oppression, and destruction.
Herein lies our paradox. We contain a spark of God, yet we are not the whole God. We possess the power to create, to give meaning, and to love. But all of this arises from our limitations as creatures. It is precisely because we are limited that all our achievements feel grand. It is precisely because we are fragile that our love is so precious. It is precisely because we are mortal that our legacy becomes eternal. Humanity is the embodiment of God on earth, not the light itself, but a reflection of the light that illuminates the world. In this way, I can say that humanity is indeed not God in the sense of infinite wholeness, but our very presence is the most tangible proof of God's existence. In our faces, in our minds, in our love, I see God gazing at himself. When I trace the long journey of what it means to be human, I arrive at a profound realization. We are the most concrete proof of the presence of divine attributes in the world. No other creature can unite creativity, consciousness, free will, and compassion within itself. No other can build civilizations, write history, or create art that lives beyond its time. All of this is a sign that behind our mortal bodies a divine light resides, making us special among all creation. This uniqueness places us at the pinnacle of existence. We are not just a part of nature, but creatures capable of subduing nature, understanding its secrets, and even transforming it. We not only live, but also infuse the world with meaning. Within us, I find a unique combination of strength and tenderness, of reason and emotion, of the transient and the eternal. That is why we deserve to be called the most noble creature, not because we are without weakness, but because in all our limitations we are capable of radiating something that resembles God. Thus, humanity is not merely a biological organism that is born, grows, and dies. We are a mirror, a medium through which God reveals himself. Every great idea, every work of art, every act of love, every search for meaning is a concrete manifestation of the divine at work through us. When we do good, we are showing God's love. When we create, we are channeling God's creative power. When we reflect, we are uncovering God's wisdom. However, this glory is not a right to be abused. Precisely because we contain a divine spark, we have a great responsibility to uphold our dignity, care for the earth, and not destroy life. If we fall into arrogance, believing ourselves to be the absolute God, we actually destroy our own divinity. But if we realize ourselves as a mirror of God, we will live with humility, full of love and wisdom. Therefore, our primary calling is to preserve that glory, not to damage it. Our task is not just to sustain life, but to glorify it. Not just to master the world, but to care for it. Not just to seek meaning, but to become a source of meaning for others. Because ultimately, every human being is a living witness of God, a small face of the Almighty, a temporary light from the eternal. And as long as we can keep that light shining, then we truly become the most glorious proof of God's presence in this universe. So for those who call themselves atheists and claim that God does not exist, I believe they have not journeyed far enough in their contemplation. They stop at the gate of logic, at the boundaries of rational argument, without looking deeper into themselves. They assume that the absence of empirical evidence means the absence of God. Yet it is their very existence that is the most tangible proof of Him. Isn't it astonishing that a human being with vast intellect, with refined consciousness, with the ability to create, then declares that all of this is merely a coincidence without direction? Consider this: we who can design cities, create technology, write poetry, and uncover the laws of nature. We who are self-aware, capable of contemplating death and asking about the meaning of life. How can all this grandeur be deemed to arise without something greater than ourselves? If the cosmos were merely a blind mechanism, how could a creature emerge from within it that not only lives, but knows that it lives, and is even capable of asking why it lives? Here lies the secret. Our own grandeur is a mirror of God. Even when someone denies God's existence, they are using their intellect, which is none other than a divine gift within them. Even when they say God does not exist, they are practicing freedom of thought, which is truly a reflection of divine freedom. They reject God, but through that very rejection, they reveal the divine qualities within themselves, the power to will, to think, and to assert meaning. Thus, ironically, we cannot escape God because we ourselves are a manifestation of Him. We can deny, we can reject, we can close our eyes, but we still walk with feet created by that greatness. We still think with a mind that originates from that light, and we still live with a breath that comes from the power that encompasses everything. Indeed, for anyone daring to dive deeper into themselves, they will find that God does not need to be sought far away. God is not merely in Scripture, not only in the heavens, not only in prayer. God lives within us ourselves, in our consciousness, in our love, in our creations. And because of this, even if an atheist declares God does not exist, in truth, every time they look in the mirror and see themselves, they are seeing the strongest proof that God is always present.
The confusion many atheists have about God often stems from their own perspective. They imagine God as a specific figure, a kind of gigantic entity sitting outside the universe, who then one day created everything from out there. In their imagination, God is seen like a cosmic artisan or architect who stands separate from His creation. And when that idea feels impossible, they then declare God does not exist. However, precisely therein lies the misconception. The true God is not like that narrow depiction. He is not an anthropomorphic figure that can be imagined with a face, hands, or enthroned beyond the heavens. He is not something separate from reality, but reality itself. God is the existence that encompasses everything, not merely a creator from outside, but the presence that forms the foundation of every second, every atom, every breath. All of these are faces of the intelligence that underlies everything. That is the true God, not merely a ruler out there, but the consciousness, power, and existence that animates all things from within. We too become part of this divine reality. Our intellect, our love, and our creative power are not something that arose from emptiness, but a radiance from the same intelligence that governs the stars. Therefore, when atheists reject God because they are trapped by the image of a figure outside the cosmos, they are actually only rejecting their naive imagination, not the true essence. The true God is existence, not merely a concept, not merely an imaginary shadow, but the most fundamental reality. Everything that exists in this universe is merely a spark of that existence. Mountains, seas, winds, stars, even the heartbeat of humanity. all are tangible forms of an existence that cannot be denied. So if someone declares God does not exist, they are actually caught in a fallacy of thought. How can they say there is nothing when their very existence, which allows them to speak those words, is proof that existence is real? They deny with logic, but the very logic they use is born from the all-encompassing existence. They think as if existence can be erased with words, yet that existence stands firm, even more real than all the proofs they demand. When someone utters, God does not exist, they are still within that realm of existence, breathing within it, moving with power derived from it. Thus, such a denial is merely a sign that their perspective is still narrow, confined by shallow logical walls. They imagine God must appear as a specific figure, present before their eyes, or descend from the heavens to prove himself. Yet the true one does not need to prove anything, for he is the foundation of all proof. The true one does not need to appear before our eyes, for it is from him that eyes can see. God is existence itself, and for that reason he can never not exist.